So, hey everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Special thanks for Chhavi. Chhavi is an ambassador, a regional leader for the Design Leadership Program. Thank you for all the panelists, Honey, Julien, and Matteo. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you also for everyone who is joining now. Please write in the chat where you're coming from and what kind of designer are you. We want to hear all the different stories out there. So we're going to be discussing today about design leadership, why it matters, and the challenges that these amazing design leaders are facing. So I'll introduce a little bit about me and Echoes, and then later on, Chhavi will introduce herself. Or do you want to go now, Chhavi? Do you want to leave it all for later? Leave it all for later. Okay, so I'll introduce myself first. So I am Julien Proserpio. I'm originally from Brazil. That's where the accent comes from, but I'm based in Sydney. I am the founder of Echoes and Chief Design Officer, and I am also a designer, of course. I am a strategic and future designer. I'm an entrepreneur, of course. We founded Echoes back in 2011 in Brazil, and we are now a global innovation lab driven by design. And I'm really passionate, of course, about design leadership and everything that has to do with design. So if you don't know Echoes, Echoes is this innovation lab driven by design. We started in 2011 back in Brazil, and we became a global company in 2017. We have 3 business units within Echoes. We have Echoes School of Design Thinking, a school that helps you to shape your innovation and design abilities, Echoes Innovation Projects, and Echoes Ventures. So with the innovation projects, we help businesses create value and innovate for good. We work with companies such as Google, Honda, Natura, and many other companies, helping them to design their desirable future, design new services, digital products, and create and accelerate innovation. And with the School of Design Thinking, where the design leadership is hosted, we help people in an organization master the innovation mindset, skills, and tools. So we are, at the beginning, we were born in Brazil, as I said, but now we have offices in different locations. Nowadays, actually, after the pandemic and during the pandemic, our team is spread in different locations, but we work a lot with Brazil and Latin America, a lot with Australia and APAC, and beginning our operations in Portugal and Europe. So we're very happy to have you all here. This is a bit of our tracking record since 2011. We had more than 40,000 people joining our courses and more than 150 projects developed throughout the years. And we are proudly part of the GDTA, the Global Design Thinking Alliance. This is an amazing alliance in design thinking. If you don't know them, we are the only independent, let's say, peer of this alliance. All the others are universities, and we're very happy to help to do the research within design thinking. And the reason why we're all here, we're going to be talking about design leadership. This is the first time that we're running this course. This course is a course to help you improve your design leadership skills, learning from top global and regional leaders. We have been developing this course since last year. We have been interviewing and talking with many design leaders out there. And we understood there was a gap within the market, because if you are already an executive design leader, you are defining your role and you're also helping to create impact. At the same time, what it means to be a VP of design or a CDO in one place is completely different to another place. And what is your impact and what you're delivering and how they expect is different. So we're also trying to shape what it means to be a design leader. But if you are a rising design leader, you are maybe creating a team or you're expanding your team. Everyone is having a lot of challenges now during the pandemic. So we created this course to help you kind of navigate design leadership better. We'll have 12 global masterclasses, 12 regional workshops, and it's going to be a 12-week program with all of these topics that you can see here, and all of these amazing leaders. So we have 12 global masterclasses with all of these amazing leaders: Andy Pulain, Brigitte Mager, Michael Tam, Peter Merhos, Stephen Gates, Indy Young, Erin Casali. If you don't know them, Google them. They are one of the most amazing design leaders out there. And we also have within the course, so every Monday in the course, you're gonna watch either live, or if you want to watch a recorded later is also okay. a global masterclass with these leaders. And on Wednesdays, we have the workshops and the regional workshops. So we have a track for EMEA, Europe, Middle East, Africa, and APAC, all together with these amazing leaders. And we have also tracks for, we also have a track for the Americas, and we also have a track for Brazil. The EMEA and APAC track will be in English. The Americas will be in English, and the Brazilian track will be in Portuguese, obviously. And if you want to know more about the course, we'll be here to talk about. The course starts in July 12, as I said before. And basically, I want to pass back the word to Chhavi, and I'll leave it up to you, Chhavi, to lead the conversation.
Thank you. This was, all this looks fabulous. I can't wait to get started. So I want to start by a really, really brief anecdote about why I'm here. So I've been studying and working with design for the last 10 years. And it was really like back then was when design was beginning to be talked about in like middle to mainstream circles, but it was still very nascent stages, right, in India. And a few odd colleges were taking barely 100 people in a country of 1 billion. So it was all really confusing. Is it fashion? Is it graphics? And my background is in particular product and interaction design. So despite having all this amazing, design degree, design experience, I always found myself running away from it until very recently, that earlier this year, I was going through this sort of a personal professional transformation. And I had just embraced my new role as the head of design at Future Food. And Juliana wrote to me, we found out about Echo. So I was like, okay, so there is more to, design, and it has some common roots with entrepreneurship, intrapreneurship, and leadership and change making. So that's how basically we are here. And I decided to start this conversation. I started looking around to see, who all we can learn from, who all should we be hearing from. And I thought of these incredible people who have inspired my journey by their amazing ability to take up challenges and really craft their own path, because we're all creating this new paradigm, a new direction, a new career, which hasn't been, well established. So that fearlessness was something that always inspired me. So it's really my honor to introduce Matteo Vignoli, my professor and mentor. He taught me the power of dancing with ambiguity. He's the director of Open Innovation Program at Almacube, an innovation accelerator with the University of Bologna. He's one of the first people bringing design thinking to Italy and has founded many interdisciplinary education programs. So thank you, Matteo, for being here today.
Welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
It's going to be exciting. Next, we have Hani Bajaj from India. She's one of my most inspiring seniors from my university times. She's the head of customer experience and insights at Tata Digital. She was awarded the Inventor of the Year in 2016 in San Francisco. And she is the co-inventor of Embrace, a low-cost baby warmer, which has saved 200,000 babies across 22 countries. You know about it. Yeah. And her experience from navigating design projects with governments of Maharashtra is what I am really curious to learn from today. And last but not least, of course, Julien Mauroy. We both are the alumni of Future Food Institute, as he spoke about in the beginning. A few years apart, of course. He is today the innovation director at Colgate-Palmolive for Asia Pacific region. And his wealth of knowledge, thanks to his experience and his really extensive journey and dedication to innovation management and innovation programming, really makes me even more excited to hear what he has to say today. So thank you all for being here. Can't wait to start this session. Let's start by, so this is what my side of introductions were. It would be great to hear from the guests as well. A quick intro. Matteo, do you want to start?
Yeah. When you reached me, about design leadership, it was really interesting because I rarely think of myself as inspiring leaders. As my idea of design, it's more on the, let's say, facilitation side. So it's more to push and prepare and open the way, rather than actually that's also already going into this course. So that's a quick anticipation of what we're going to discuss, and the different type of leadership that we can implement while creating what a designer do, which sometimes is unavoidable. So it's this sense of this is missing, and we need to make it happen. And that happens in the product design, in the service design, and also in the design leadership, which is applying design to design. So making it happen within the organization.
Yes,
It was a teaser. That was something. Okay.
And I love that you said that. That's exactly, I think that's a very, very unique style of leadership. And I'll be curious to hear more about it. Julien, share.
Absolutely. I think similarly, the question came, oh, do I see myself as a design leader? But we'll get into that, I think, with the questions. Just a quick note on my journey. I started out as a web designer. Then everything that came after was both a journey of frustration and of, I would say, kind of fascination, because at first I was wondering, why are so many products designed, like physical products, designed so badly? Then I realized that there's actually people who come up with these products, so I decided to study industrial design. While studying industrial design, I was like, why do designers, mostly privileged white men, I happen to be one of them, impose their view of the future and the world, and why did it lead us to this kind of awfulness? And then I started to think, well, is it designers alone, or is it designers, facilitating things around them? That got me interested in design thinking. I've been working with that in academia, consulting. I've been an entrepreneur. More recently, just to basically get from designing the product correctly, to designing the brief correctly, to designing the process that leads to the brief correctly, to designing the strategy that leads there. That eventually led me to innovation management. Simply on this journey of I would very much say, driven by this, trying to solve this frustration of why are there so many awful products that are doing these awful things to the world, and how can we solve that?
And that's quite interesting, actually. We're going to be, with Matteo, we're going to be talking about planet-centric design in one of the talks next week as well. And that's also becoming another paradigm of design, because awful design is really just awful for planet as well. But I really like your product to brief to process to strategy path. I think that's very, very, very interesting. And I can also just zoom out on my journey and see that, okay, which part of it am I on? So thank you for sharing that. Honey.
Hi. For me, design was fairly something that I discovered. I grew up in a very small town called Siliguri. It's at the foothills of Darjeeling in India. And I kind of grew up with this whole aspect as, India had so many problems, right? As growing up, there were so many opportunities that I could see where something could be done about it. And it was not in the space of really designing a product, but a lot of opportunities where somebody could step up and solve it. And I think that really made me follow this passion to really build something. I didn't even know in India if product design ever existed, because during my time, we were only talking about fashion and jewelry. So for me, design was more of a discovery and more of a curiosity. Is there a field of study that can really help me build things which can solve problems? And for me, that's how it's been. In fact, unlike most designers, after graduating from design school, mostly it's the design studio where you go first. But for me, I was like, I took the Stanford problem right from the D school, right? The Design for Extreme Affordability course. And we went on this journey that can we make more affordable and more usable into incubators for this country? And I kind of resonate with both of you, Matteo and Julien, because in these years, I have played that role of a facilitator, as I've also grown myself for the community, but also the frustration of why are these products not built for the context, right? I mean, context is so important when you're building anything, right? And most developing countries, we just pick what is built in the West and just force fit it for our countries, and we expect everybody around to just adopt it. Also, I was also studying design when the cusp of product design in India was mostly seen from a point of view of craft, because artisans and craft community in India is very, very strong. So the whole product design sector was being seen that, okay, you'll be working with artisans, and mostly the craft sectors where you can really, contribute as a designer. But for me, I think that hunger that a product could also be a ringtone, a product could also be a service, or it could just be a change in the ecosystem design, pushed me to kind of, study design thinking and really create a voice for designers in the country. That's where I come from.
Amazing. And context is everything when it comes to design. Thank you. Thank you all. I'm super excited. Okay, let's go on to our first fire session question. What is the meaning of design leadership in your context? Because we want to start by first defining for ourselves. Of course, different people, different contexts have a different meaning of design leadership. So I want to start by Matteo. You've been working in academia, you've been working in food systems and food innovation. What does design leadership mean to you?
Design leadership for me, it's what I teach to people, because in many cases, especially in the last 10 years, when I came back from Stanford with the knowledge of design thinking and the mission to spread it in Italy, I realized that many companies needed to change their perspective towards their users, their context, like Honey was correctly saying, and their ecosystems. And that required a form of leadership which is probably one of the most powerful, which is the leadership by doing. So showing that it is possible to change things in any context. And I had one of the most powerful instruments to do that, which is hungry students, hungry for change. And they really went into any system showing senior managers that they could change perspective, they could change mindset, they could change the way people think. And how? By doing something different, by behaving, asking, and creating something that was not there before, even though those people were in the business since years. New people with the right tool set can lead different ways, and not by telling people, not by bossing people, but by simply going there and asking questions. So in brief, that's what I do. I teach people how to ask nasty questions and weird questions, and just any question that can change things. Few days ago in a lecture, in a random lecture, one of the one that I do, had a very close friend coming to teach. He's a senior manager, and those people are new, like they will become something later on, and they ask, okay, what can we do if we see something in a company that we don't like? Should we tell to people? And he was actually giving the same answer that I am sharing with you now. He said, no, you cannot tell people that they are not doing right, because they will think you are crazy and they will put you in a box and not, continue doing what they do. But you can ask question, why you do these things? What's behind? What's going on? Show me more. And then this is the transformation, right? Because that's what changed the perspective and force people to think about things. And if you think closely, that's actually the power of leadership, making people think differently and then act. I have another teaser, but we will share later, which is when people are really acting. So is thinking also doing or not? But we'll talk about that in the next question.
Interesting. So this thing of asking questions really like changes the perspective, right? Like instead of like top down, this is what you should be doing, you're asking them to think about what they're doing. But how does it work in the context of timelines? And it takes much longer. And I would be curious, Julien, because like in the company settings, you have such short sprints. And so what is design leadership in your context? And do you resonate with what Matteo is saying here?
I think in terms of things taking longer, I'll get back to it. This is why I have this as a background. I'll compare this to that. but just in a nutshell, I also, preparing for this call, was asking myself, well, am I a design leader? And I could say, well, no, but I can be two things. I'm a leader who is a design leadership ally, or I'm an innovation leader who is a design Trojan horse. So basically, so right now my position is innovation director, and within the span of like a month or two, Colgate hired 2 innovation directors, myself and my colleague for China specifically, who happen to be designers. But we were not hired to be design leaders. We were hired because we were, recognized for what we could do with innovation. Now, that being said, inside Colgate, we have a structure. I would say we have a design structure that is trying, like in many other corporations, that is trying to have more and more influence, higher and higher. And I find that in my own position, I can really be their ally. I can make room for what I know that they can bring. I can make room for how upstream in the process, thinking about strategy rather than thinking about, do we make this pack shiny or not shiny? So I can be their ally in doing so. In terms of driving change within the company, it's also very interesting because I was trying to think like R&D people see me as a marketer that just takes their invention and sprinkle a nice marketing story on top of it. The commercial people see me as someone who's supposed to come up with something cool that will sell well, and everything else they're not too interested in, just the numbers that it'll bring. So I would say all these, and I could state a few more kind of cliches, but I think that I'm in a position where I can connect all those dots, a little bit like what Matteo said. Because I come from this with a design perspective, I don't see things in silos. I don't see there's one way, or there's way A, or there's way B. I'm in a position where I can lead people into thinking of way C. But do I, on a daily basis, tout the horn of saying this is design, this is design? No, and not because I'm embarrassed of it, but simply because I feel that it's almost like at a certain point, how would I say, at a certain point of maturity, I think that if a company is design-led, it becomes part of its DNA, and it doesn't even say that it's design-led anymore. I'll get back to that, but Colgate acquired the brand Hello, that is definitely design-led. But you ask the Hello if they're design-led, and they're like, "What?" it's only natural to them. You know what I mean? They just organically grew up that way.
Oh, that is really great news for us designers, that it's actually become so embedded. If you're feeling that industry is actually absorbing it, that
I'm not saying it's become that
connecting the dots
yet, but hoping to get there.
Hoping to get there. We're working towards it. So I definitely relate a lot to the connecting the dots and the multifaceted nature of a design leader, because they can really see what's there in all the different departments and all the different contexts and just bring it all together into a cohesive story. I also love your thought about being an ally to all of these managers and leaders. As a design leader, that's a new thought that I haven't thought about yet. And this is interesting. How is it in the UX insight space, Honey? And then I want you to speak a little bit also about the governance part. Yeah.
I'm not sure about the UX insight space, but basically I've been working on building solutions, right? Tech solutions. How it is in India and how it is in companies in India, I would say I think resonate with Matteo and Julien on a certain things, which is one is design leadership is also about asking why, and maybe not diving into asking very probing questions and really moving the entire system that works in smaller organizations. Not everybody is okay with that. And also not always using the word design. So actually, if you see my designation, it doesn't even have the word design. I think if you really can shift mindsets, if you really can drive change, the work itself shows. Yes, it's harder in few countries. Like in India, this is not something which existed as a skill. This is not something that leaders did. So it does take some time to adopt. So I would say if you're working in countries or you're working in situations or companies which have never seen any sort of innovation happen, or innovation happen in the way we see it as designers, I would say use the whole angle of empathy, right? We've been taught that, and it's not to be just obliged to our work, but also people we work with, right? They do bring in a lot of experience and rigor as well, right? As Julien said, we should be working as their allies, because I think a lot of times what I've learned in the industry now over the years is, say for example with Tata Group, yes, users are your stakeholders, but I think these experienced leaders in other industries are also a very important stakeholder. And if you can ask them the right questions and the right whys, you'd really move forward much faster. And they would get along with you even if they don't have those answers. But I think this constant use of this term that, oh, I'm a design thinker and, I use design thinking, and I don't think it works in every context. I'll give you and I think it's also important to adapt, right? In this whole marketing of design process, design thinking, like I was in conversation with David Kelly himself, and I said, this existed, right? I literally have a picture with him in his room where, we talked about just the word design thinking for such a long time. And what is it? And he's like, honey, it was my turn to market it, right? For IDEO. For you, it could be something else. So I was like, can it be design audit for me, right? Because I'm kind of right now assessing a lot of things and trying to make more of a service design change happen, right? Where it's really not designing something, but shifting a few things in places, right? And he's like, absolutely. So I did this venture in the US, right? Where Capital One Labs, the bank, actually looks at design thinking and has embraced it in their own way and have defined it what works for them, right? Intuit has changed the whole world of design thinking to design for delight, because that's what they want to focus on. So I think design leadership is something which should not be bucketed. I think design is organic, and maybe in a few years, the whole terminology changes, and we should adapt and grow after being in these positions. So, Julien is like innovation head, right? Matteo is leading this whole open innovation. My whole designation is consumer insights. And I think design leadership is going to really change in the future with this whole data analytics piece coming in, because we were all about quantitative information, right? And now we're getting qualitative information, which is really bringing huge insights beyond what we used to get from our qualitative interviews. And I think as leaders, we need to embrace that and create a new methodology of how that would work.
And that is just so beautiful, the fact that we have to transform ourselves and be like these fluid creatures. I think it's a great way of putting it. And wrapping up this round. Thank you, everyone. This was super insightful. Let's move on to our next segment, which is, why does it matter? Why do you think we should talk about it today, or why didn't we talk about it before? Why today it's more critical to really create a conversation around it?
If I can go, I think after a few years of being a designer in India, the reason why I went to MIT for my master's was because I felt designers needed a seat on the table. We needed to be, tell organizations that, there is a different way of thinking, right? And how it can be applied early on versus later in the stage to make things look beautiful or just to sell, right? That is something that didn't exist in India. Like, for example, for Embrace, right? Everybody knows the case study, right? But the moment you think about Embrace, you think about Stanford D School. But nothing really happened at that Stanford D School. It's just that few students met and decided to solve a problem. Everything happened in India, right from the production, our entire design research, building of the product, the world-class, the showmanship that happened in India. But when you talk about the product, it talks about, okay, it was built at Stanford, right? And that really bothered me a few years ago. And for me, that's why it was very important that design plays a leadership role to voice that things are being built in the country by the people who understand the context. And it is not always about embracing things from the West. So it was more like a battle where, we know our shit and we really can really do things which are world-class. So I just come from there.
Oh my God, I can totally relate to that. Really, that batch of women designers who are going to change the world in India. And what about you, Julien? Why do you think it matters today?
I think it's in a similar way. I think I come from a place of impact. Long story short, when I was a design student, one of my professors recommended me to read Design for the Real World by Victor Papanek, which was written in the 60s. And I read it like 50 years later and realized that basically nothing had changed, or very little had changed, and that the impact that not necessarily designers, but the role of designers within organizations, that this was leading to maybe more harm than good. So I've been really driven by impact, and actually that's kind of what attracted me to my to the position that I have right now. The Colgate products are in 2/3 of households worldwide, and a big chunk of that is within Asia Pacific. And I don't remember off the top of my head the ratios, but if you look at plastic on the beaches, well, we also have a big chunk of the plastic on beaches that is from Colgate. We have a big chunk of carbon footprint from shipping products around that are full of water. And that essentially, it's kind of like we have a massive impact on the world in terms of how many people's lives we can improve, within their homes and so on. But also that comes with a massive responsibility. So I would say that is, I find like, to me, this is a great place for design, call it design leadership, call it innovation leadership, because it's really the farthest thing from, and when I was saying making the product better and so on, it's almost going the other way around, which is kind of like, what is our role in society? Then how does that role in society influence our strategy, our business models, the products that come out of it, and so on? And the kind of transformation that we need, and the kind of transformation that the company is trying to make, we cannot silo everything anymore. We cannot think like, oh, certain people think about luxury, beauty kind of products. Other people within the company think about sustainability. And then other people think about cool new digital business models. Like all those dots need to be connected. So I think it's a great chance to apply what we know we can do. I'll paraphrase Hani, the fact that we designers know our shit. So it's a great way, not necessarily to scream that we know our shit and that we're the only ones who know better, but it's a great place for us to exert the facilitation that we can have, the connecting the dots that we know we can do so on.
And it's great that both of you come from the place of impact, like the world needs better designers because there's a lot of bad design destroying the planet, the plastic, and that's great.
And I don't
Matteo,
think it's
why does it matter?
that. I think it's not just that, right? Just one point. I think there's a huge opportunity in many verticals and sectors that have never embraced design, right? We'll talk about it further, but like I work with the government of Maharashtra, right, in agriculture and revenue department. I mean, for the first 3 months, I was just explaining what I could do, right? So I think there's still a lot of room of what we bring in versus what perception of many industries is that what designers can do. And I think it's a long way to go. I think we just hit the tip of the iceberg with that.
So the opportunity along with the impact is also another reason why it matters today.
I strongly ally with what Julien and Hani said. While you were speaking, I come from academia. I'm an assistant professor at the university. And in both of your stories, I found a little bit of impressionist feeling. Like there was a cafe in Paris, beginning of the last century actually, where all the impressionists met. It was called La Dome. In Montparnasse, and everybody, Picasso, Braque, Modigliani, Rivera, Greece, everybody was going there, and I feel that in this moment the university have this role of creating this environment where people think about the responsibility to change the world. So in a way, this school is doing this, creating a course that is called, Design for Extreme Affordability, is creating the locus where bright and talented people can decide to change the world and actually have a platform for doing it. Even though this platform is just, go kids, do it. You can, right? And Julien was, inspired by his professor that just gave him something to read, and all the rest follows. And it's of course, all Julien responsibility. But what if this professor was not leading his thinking? So this is actually the main reason why I stayed at the university and did not, pursue all the other potential career I had, because I think that with leadership comes responsibility, and everyone should look at himself, take a walk and think about, okay, what's my role? What's my calling? What can I do? What is this? And this is actually the start of leadership, lead your way towards what you can have the maximum impact, and probably, find the one that is harder, and inspire others to actually, create a community towards change. And in this world, in this, hyper interconnected system that we are living, I think that's the only way. It's not about telling people, it's about inspiring, educating, giving instruments for collaboration and change, so that they can, and they feel they can, and or they don't know they cannot, so they do it. And I must say that this is probably the most important form of leadership that design can spark, which is the ability to think that you're not alone, and you have to work with others to achieve your goals. And it's not about asking only, but is prepare for asking. Like when I have my students in front and I ask, okay, do you have questions? That's actually the wrong way. Okay. Where I say, okay, let's prepare for questions. Let's, study, read, interview, embed, immerse for questions, because that's the end result of your journey is a question, and that's what we teach them. Like when we start a project, a design project, there is a question. When we start ideation, there is a reframe question. And when we finish the project, there is also a question, because we question our user about what they think and what we can learn from them. And I stress that because I do believe that leadership matters in this way, which is this form of inclusive leadership that we need to help people discover.
Thanks for sharing that, Matteo. I feel like being a student again. I think Chhavi can resonate with this. I think academia, not only in universities, but also in schools, need to change, because asking why, I think, never happened for 17 years of my life, right? I think some of the other people who've gone through the British system of education can resonate, because we were never allowed to ask why, right? We were trained to be doers and not thinkers. And that's how the education system was set up. So I think design also gives that liberalness and that openness to question. And I think that came only from the design schools that we had the opportunity to go to.
Yeah. And why now? Why now? Because we need to bring this kind of thinking to all the other disciplines, because in this way we have the same language. And when people, okay, what is the design language? And then I say, is the language of questions, is the language of actually being allowed, because you take the pride to change.
I think the inclusivity of it is the single most important thing that differentiates traditional design. The Milan product designers really great at what they do, as opposed to a design system, designing new systems together, not working in silos, not working alone, bringing everyone into the conversation. So designer's role as a facilitator is what's the single most important thing, I think, which is separating the two schools of thought. So that's really valuable. I want to hear from you. What does it take for designers to excel in leadership roles today? I will feel free to jump in.
Never stop facilitating others. There's one thing that really makes it's the core of my journey as educator in this field, and also all the roles that I have, for example, in future food or in Almacube. Most people are proud and want to be celebrated by what they're doing. And there's this sense of the mark, the grade, and the acknowledgement of what you do. And when I joined the school and I discovered that you, Honey, were the designer of Embrace, I was really happy for two reasons. First, because I never knew that you were the designer. And I frankly, truly love the design you did with your team, of course. And that makes me
as the sole designer.
Yeah, that makes the topic, right? It's not about the pride and the thing that everybody has, as being a leader, but it's about the things that we do that leads other. And this is critical. Like when people say, "Hey, I was the one doing that," and I say no, because the people choose to use it. The organization choose to push it. Many people share, the success of a product, a service, or organization. And if you feel that you are the star, then most likely you will never reach there, because your ego will tame the way to your things to the world. So you need to, consider that the success, especially when you're aiming for impact, is that you become invisible, and it's not your design, it's everybody's design. So this is really, the core of of what takes to a design leadership. It's not about you, it's about we and everybody that should be feeling the same sense of pride when they buy the product, when they use the service, when they belong to that organization. So if they do it because of you, then you fail. If they do it because they care, then you succeed, and your success is you becoming forgotten, right? Like when Julien was saying, the success of design is when everybody will never talk about it. Okay, the same concept. So I think that's the core of what we are called in today.
And this shows up in different forms. Design being omnipresent, not even stating it, just being so naturally embedded. And it's something so powerful that I never thought about. Like, designers have been for the longest time very, like very proud about what they do. And this is a complete transformation when you're taking up design leadership.
But I completely resonate with Matteo, what he said, because at Embrace, it was the reason why in any of the articles you don't see who's the designer is because I never considered myself a designer at that point of time. I considered myself bringing in aspects which maybe an electronics engineer or a clinical trial person wasn't bringing in. I mean, the whole way, and it requires, as much as you want design to be omnipresent, Matteo, I think it requires a lot of maturity in the team and requires a lot of rigor to make that happen. It doesn't really happen so organically. It needs to be facilitated. I'll give you one example. Because we were building Embrace from scratch, I also designed the onboarding program, right? And day one, whether you were joining as a security guard, an assembly line expert, an accountant, or a business analyst, your first visit would be to an NICU, right? Where you would see a newborn baby and a premature baby. And all of us would know that, okay, whatever we're building so that this baby can be safe, all right? And all of us are doing those things, right? So it really took a lot of work for designers not just to take pride and to showcase and create that value that what others were bringing in. Like this question, right? How do you scale design teams? I think it's redundant now because you can't scale with just designers. You need people from different disciplines. And I think COVID has shown it to us that we don't need managers anymore. Honestly, I'm not a manager. I'm very hands-on with my work, right? And I don't hire people in the team with the same skill that I already bring in. So I'm not sure if design team is the right word anyway. Like, it's about how do you really scale teams that can design well, rather than scaling design teams. I'll
Very,
just
very
my case
interesting.
there. So like my team does not have
Julien,
a design, right? So I'll let Julien share his views.
Sure. I'll be quick. I assume we want to finish on the hour. Okay. So go ahead.
Go for it.
Okay.
No,
so
go
I
for
think
it. I want to hear from you.
Sure. In summary, I think it's true that education, conditions us, and maybe design school was one of the notable exceptions, to imagine that whatever we design, whatever we think of, whatever we plan, will have success in the world if we put a lot of intellectual rigor into it. And this creates what I drew in the bottom, which is basically all along the way, you think you're right, you think you're right, you think you're right. And then some of the finishing touches that are usually, design specialties, then are confronted to the real world. The brief is entirely wrong. It becomes a mess, and then we miss the point in the end. That is how most people have been educated. That is how most organizations function, where essentially you only think of the real world as a tweak, at the end. It's an afterthought. It'll just be a tweak because our intellectual rigor was there. Versus we know that you need to consider the real world in many iterations in order to hit it right and to be perfectly clear in the end. One thing that's very important to cultivate for design leaders is that the top versus the bottom has very different emotional considerations. So I would say becoming a design leader by only have seen the emotional journey of a 2-day workshop, no. Like, you need to know the ups and downs and how painful it can be to form a new mental model in your brain over a long stretch of time, over, I would say, kind of very high highs and very low lows. I mean, that's why I think that innovation programs like the ones that I've been through in collaboration with Stanford, now Sugar Network, are very useful. Being an entrepreneur is very useful because we need to know the emotional journey ourselves in order to have the EQ to know how it looks like in others and why they might be reluctant to it. Which brings me also to something that we mentioned earlier, which is empathy. We're doing planet-centered design, human-centered design, human as they relate to planet, but a lot of those humans are the humans inside of our own organization. And the thing with that is the nice thing about those organizations is that they can make things happen at scale, but they can make things happen at scale only if it works for the people inside those organizations, not just the people that we're trying to serve in the end. So I would say it's developing empathy, not just for the end user, but for the stakeholders, for the colleagues around us, and to know, to again, ask them questions. Ask them what is their reality. Figure out what is a problem that we can solve for them at the same time as solving a problem for end users and solving a problem for the planet, ultimately. And I think last thing is, if we come into design leadership, often it's easy to have a little bit lost one's craft, or if we don't come from a place of design education, to not really have a craft. To have at least be, when we say iterate a lot, we should be able to iterate without securing a budget for the design agency. We should be able to sketch a little cartoon on the corner of a table during a meeting. We should be able to Photoshop a mock-up slapped together in a hurry. We should be able to prototype something based on what we find on our desk. None of these need to be deep crafts, but we need to be able to make things happen so that we allow our colleagues to visualize all those great theories that we're telling them about. So I think it's easy to get lost as in like lofty, higher rank leadership, and to think that it's all about being intellectual and making PowerPoints. No, I think us design leaders need to maintain at least a little bit of a craft that allows us to iterate really, really quickly.
I love that last one. Like, it also makes me want to just go back to those non-pandemic times when we had a desk and a space in a physical location. This was so great. Like, it went beyond my expectations. I'll just wrap up with a few key points that we listed out today. We spoke about how a journey of Julien's journey of a design leader has been from designing products to designing briefs to processes, and now finally doing strategy. You can find yourself in that process as a design leader as well. We learned that from Hani that context is so important. Context is everything. Design made by the people where it's supposed to be used. From Matteo, we saw that his biggest inspiration was hungry students to change the world, who had this hunger to change the world. His strategy of leading. Can you hear me still? My internet keeps going down. Yeah. Would you like to add something to that, Hani?
I was saying if he's still ready to take me as a student, I'm still hungry.
Yeah, join us in Polica in a few weeks. We're gonna change the world with food.
Done.
Yes. Asking questions is a powerful technique to lead. Making room, being an ally, creating space for others, facilitating design more than leading design. Empathy, not just for your users, but also for your stakeholders. The biggest values of design leadership today is that its ability to create impact and the opportunity it has, because it hasn't been absorbed in so many different environments yet. Immersing yourself in empathy. And that's all we spoke about today. This is really exciting. Juliana, do you want to talk about the program before we let everyone go?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Chhavi. That was an amazing wrap up. And I also want to thank you for inviting and organizing this amazing session with these leaders that I'm very inspired by on this Saturday evening here in Sydney. It's amazing to hear about your journeys and about why design leadership matters, how we should be doing, what we should not be doing. I love all the points. I was taking notes. So thank you for that. And thank you everyone for joining us. This session was recorded, so we're going to be sending this to you and also sharing for our network. Feel free to share with your network as well. So this was part of the fire sessions that we're doing for the design leadership course, as I mentioned, earlier. So this course, this was just a starter conversation. Of course, we're going to be exploring much deeper what is design leadership, but also practicing. So in the course, we're going to have 12 global master classes. We're going to have global leaders with inspirations on design leadership, how to create the design operations, not only for designers, as I totally agree with you, but what design operations means is you are fomenting innovation, fomenting change, and really creating impact. And in the local workshops, you're going to be together with a smaller group where we're going to be doing hands-on experiments to be better design leaders, independently if you are a rising design leader or already an executive design leader. So these will be smaller cohorts. We're going to be learning by our peers and also networking a lot within your region. I'm sorry. So this, if you are here, you can get this code for 20% off. I'm sorry. I'll just
I'm
Chhavi,
sorry,
you
you're not
go.
feeling well today. Yeah, that's it. We would love to see you all at the Design Leadership Program, and hope to see you there. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, design leaders. You guys really made this so rich with all your insights and experience.
Thank you to you, Chhavi.
Thank you.
And thanks, Honey and Julien. I'll wait for you in Italy as soon as possible. And when I said Pollica, is because we are running some programs there when we created, say, a platform for using food to save our planet and impact the climate with the help of what is the context around you. We use the Mediterranean diet as let's say, as an instrument to inspire people to change the food systems. But it's also a beautiful place. And as Julien knows, Italy always brings something more to what you do. And Honey, I'll be really happy to host you around here when you want to join us.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you. It was lovely listening to all of you. And thank you, Chhavi. I would really appreciate if we can stay in touch in some way. I've sent you all a LinkedIn invite, and I'd love to keep having these organic conversations. So thank you, Echoes, for hosting this for us and connecting people who think similarly but come from very different parts of the world.
Yeah, I see Donato in Puglia with the trulli, just making us envious.
And thank you so much for inviting me. I've also taken some notes because some of the perspectives that we exchanged today actually gave me a solution to a design or innovation leadership challenge that I was having this week. So I'm going to go into my next week of work, I would say, with an improved perspective, thanks to this call. So thank you so much. This just proves the value of these kinds of exchanges, these kinds of networks.
That's super
Thank
cool.
you,
Yeah.
everyone. I'm sorry I was coughing and going crazy here. I told Chhavi that I had like a hay fever attack today. So sorry for that. So guys, just so that you know, we have this ebook free for download on design leadership with interviews with the many design leaders that we're going to be having in the course. Feel free to download as well. And we have other fire sessions coming. You're all invited to come always. And again, the course will be starting very soon in July 12th. And it's going to be a big dive on design leadership and make us better designers. Because now we have the stage to change the world. And we kind of need to create impact for good, right? Not just talk about it sometimes, but really make it happen. Like Honey was saying, it's sometimes when it really matters, when you really create impact. So thank you again. And I'm sorry for my crazy coughing and things like that.
That's fine. Ciao.
Ciao. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Chhavi.
Bye-bye.